Just try to chirp in with welcome to another episode of the PodStation and then play music. If you want to do it cheesy way like that.
Welcome to the PodStation. We're back on the air. This is Kryptonite Dragon, joined by Dante Zero.
Hello again.
Hello again.
Yep.
So here we are, Sunday, June 2nd, 2013. Lots of good stuff coming out this year. Woohoo!
Only 12 more days to go to the biggest release. Well, for Sony anyway. What I was going to say we should probably start and apologise that we are a little bit late this week. We have been testing numerous different ways to actually give you guys better quality podcasts, but also make it more socially interactive as well. So we've been testing things like Google Plus and stuff, so hence we're a little bit late today, but we're still going to keep chipping away at that. So do bear with us on some weekends and stuff when we do the PodStation, because we are actively trying to constantly improve, and it's just taking a little while to get our heads around some of the technology and actually make sure it runs stably as well.
And forgot chasing off birds.
Yeah, I can't do this, you know what? I can't do anything about that. I apologise. If you hear loads of birds, it's because I live like in the middle of a village in the middle of nowhere in England. And it's like, when it's really sunny like this, the birds are just everywhere. You know what I mean? There's nothing I can do, and obviously guns aren't legal here, so I can't just go out and shoot them.
Can't you get a pellet gun or anything there? No?
Yeah, but, you know,
Slingshot.
if you shoot birds with air guns here, it's frowned upon. It's a very not done thing to do.
I'm kidding. We don't do that either here. But yeah, if you start melting, I guess you could open your window and let us hear the beautiful birds.
Yeah, what's wrong with a bit of like background
nature
music?
And now the sounds of nature with Dante Zero. We just need the rain. Need the rain music now.
Yeah. That'd be pretty
Sounds
awesome.
of rain on the safari with Dante Zero.
And if you're just tuning in, no, you have really come to the right place. This is really the PodStation.
Definitely. Okay, so around the site, we've got a new program coming out for staff. More about that with them directly, but it should make for the first part of our plan to add a lot of data on the front end. So that is ready for beta, from what I understand.
Yay. Fun.
And then we'll have to work with that in depth to get all the other stuff added to it that we want to add, the way the staff wants it to be added, to make it all easy for them. And the easier for them, the more stuff will get put in, and then the more stuff that's put in, the more data will be on the front, and the more people will love to use the front end pages and visit, and membership will go up, and it'll be a great big happy circle. So make the staff happy first.
I was going to say, we all know everybody likes using the new front page, and well, most people like it, but anything we can do to sort of make things better is always welcome. So
Data rules the world. People want to know stuff.
Knowledge is power.
Amen. So that's about it for the site.
Nothing else? Are you sure?
Is there something I'm forgetting?
I don't know. That's what I was checking.
You sound like No, still working hard on the SEO and all that in the background. Been doing really a ton of stuff. And probably going to have to spend some more money here soon for some additional SEO and everything, and just get it kicked off properly.
Yeah.
Such a
Don't forget there is
complicated,
that
ongoing
donate.
process.
I was going to say, don't forget there is that shiny donate button with a little heart
Yeah,
on the
no doubt.
website, so do click it.
Yes. When new sites starting off, it's always difficult, and we're competing against a couple of our major ones have been out for like 8 or 9 years or something now, and
Yeah.
It's rough. We got a ways to go, but we'll get there. We will absolutely get there.
Yep, we're going in the right direction. That's a start. And on top of all that, I think in terms of where we've come from and where we are at now in comparison to our competitors and some of the things that we've got planned going forward, it's easy. It may not seem like that on the surface that we'll get to that point, but there is a genuine drive and enthusiasm to get us to that point, and not just stop there, but go further. So, I always do say to people, we are, I guess, what you classed as quietly optimistic, because we could go round shouting our heads off, but rather than waste time doing things like that, we'd rather put all that time and effort into just making the best possible thing we can.
Yep, just do it.
And continue it. Yep.
Build. Add.
It's alright talking the talk, but do you know what I mean?
Yes. So, PSN pick. Give me something good.
Yeah, actually, I've been thinking about this, and I know we normally do like small sort of indie games and things like that. But for this week, I actually wanted to switch it up a little bit because we hadn't done one in a while. I wanted to.
No.
Sorry?
A Nintendo game?
No, God. Less said about that, the better. But yeah. So this week, our PSN pick of the week is SSX. The reboot version, which was done by EA last year, I believe.
I saw you put in a thing where you just recently purchased that.
I picked it up pre-owned on this, but to be honest with you, to buy the digital version of it, it's about £20, which is actually pretty cheap, and you get obviously all the benefits you would get, like the online pass system. If you are looking to go out and buy this on disc, bear in mind if you do what I do, which is I bought on disc, EA are actually scrapping the online passes for all their games. And they're rolling it out over the next couple of weeks. So any DLC that you would have got as a result of entering any extra content you would have got as a result from an online pass will now be offered to you for free, and the online passes will be made free as well. So now if you buy a pre-owned EA game, you don't have to worry about the online pass system. It may take a couple of weeks for it initially to start rolling out. I know it has on XBLA and Steam, and I think might have done for Dragon Age 2 on PS3. But they are going to be, increasing that over the next sort of year as well. So it may take a couple of months for certain games to really get the online pass abandoned, but so now's a good time to sort of really invest in EA games as such, and SSX is definitely one of those that people should get hold of.
Indeed. Good price. Free is a good price.
It's not, well, the online pass is free. You still have to pay 20 quid for the game.
I know, I'm just saying free is one of my favourite prices.
Yeah. Well, we always like a freebie, but so I should probably talk a little bit about SSX. For those that don't know, obviously EA back in the day on PS2 had a snowboarding game that was hugely, insanely popular called SSX. It spawned numerous different ones. I think most people's favourites was probably SSX Tricky, which came out on the PS2. And I think it was one of the last SSX games that they released on PS2, and since then it's sort of been quiet up until last year. So enter obviously the new SSX reboot. It's very much like the old SSX. There is a sort of serious sportsman vibe to it in terms of, if you've ever played, for example, Need for Speed Carbon, where you have to go down mountains and stuff and you have to be deadly accurate, there's that kind of vibe to it, but it's still got all the charm and fun of an SSX game. So you still, whenever you build up your boost meter and your trick meter, you'll still get the music kick in and it'll go, "It's tricky!" and you get your Run DMC bit of music as you perform like mad tricks and grab some serious air. But the game itself is a very competent snowboarding game, and it's especially a lot of fun. I believe I was saying to somebody recently that the PS3 and even the 360 in this case hasn't seen a lot of snowboarding games. You know, back in the day on PS1 we used to have like Cool Borders and stuff like that. And then obviously in PS2 that we got the SSX games, and since PS3 came around and you know the current gen of consoles, we haven't really seen snowboarding other than Shaun White's snowboarding, and even then that wasn't particularly great. So it's kind of nice to see SSX coming back, and they've done a really good job with it. So I'm going to highly recommend that for people to check it out, pick it up pre-owned, or you know grab it from the PSN store for pretty cheap. I think you won't be disappointed with it, especially if you're a fan of the old school SSX games. There's something in there. But yeah, as I say, I was playing through it over the course of the week, and then it just reminded me of how great you know SSX was, and I certainly hope with the next generation round the corner that they look at doing another SSX for that, because it'll be great to see that come back from EA, especially with the video recording capabilities of PS4. I think you know being able to record replays and upload them to YouTube, especially with an SSX game, would be epic. So if anyone from EA is listening, we love SSX. We've recommended it as our PSN pick of the week, but please make another SSX for PS4 because we need it.
Yeah, you want to hear something funny? Kind of the timing of it, I guess. I've been helping someone else out with their forum that they just started, and I've been posting a little bit in it. I was asked to kind of help kind of get it started, and it's about snowboarding. And I used to be a snowboarder in my younger years.
Yeah.
And it's not something a lot of people know, but it's been a very, very long time. But I was one of those snowboarders back before snowboarding, and it's back when skateboarding really started up too. And
back in the 80s then?
Yeah. Yeah, actually it was.
Tony Hawk. I was going to say when Tony Hawk really...
Yes, when Tony Hawk, I had...
Yeah.
In fact, my first skateboard that I put together, the board was one of the first Tony Hawk boards that were released. So, yeah, kind of weird, but yeah, I was a actual true snowboarder and loved it. Used to just go, and it was one of those times where back then skiers thought that they were kind of elite, and snowboarders weren't allowed to share the powder with them, and it was kind of like a grunge rebel kind of thing, like skateboarding.
And now it's like proper mainstream, especially with things like the X Games.
Yeah, the X Games. I mean, it's bigger than skiing, definitely in that realm.
And you look at some of the videos of people snowboarding these days and some of the stuff they pull off, it is like playing an SSX game. You just think, how can they even, you know, have the audacity to try something like that? But I guess that's the flexibility snowboarding affords you as opposed to skiing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I've skied or tried to ski, I guess I would say, and there's just, it's a huge difference. I don't know. I would much rather snowboard, and I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can get hurt on it, though. I can tell you that. What's that?
But I don't know. It's just, I've always had this fascination with snowboarding, just because I've mainly never lived anywhere where I can go snowboarding. So
you've never tried it?
For me, well, I've tried it once on a dry slope, ski slope, but you know, again, I've not been anywhere to actually go and do proper snowboarding. So, you know, hence this is why I have a kind of, I guess, a guilty pleasure in playing snowboarding games, because it gives me that outlet that to, you know, really enjoy. I used to watch the X Games and stuff, but sort of gone off that a little bit over the last 10 years or so. But yeah, I really wish that, as I say, there'd be more sort of snowboarding, extreme snowboarding typey games that came out, to sort of push it back into people's minds. Because if you look at the Tony Hawk series, for example, I mean, the Tony Hawk series has got steadily worse. And so, now any game that comes out that's similar to, a Tony Hawk style game is automatically tarnished with the same brush. And as a result, people don't necessarily want to play those sort of games. And I think it's a bit of a shame. I really want to see some of these. I want to see Tony Hawk get back to its magic. And I certainly want to see more from SSX series by EA, because I think, we really do need a decent skateboarding game and a snowboarding game for the next generation of consoles, especially given the graphics, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used to play some of the skateboarding games as well, and I thought that they were getting where they were just a lot of the same.
Yeah.
And it was really innovative because there was a lot you could do and a lot of controls and a lot of different stuff. But once you reach that point, it was almost like a Madden release every year where you're like, well, where's the new stuff? It's a new team, but
yeah.
So it's. I mean, those can be really good games.
I'm not asking them to do it on a yearly basis. I'd just like more of them.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean?
Those can be really great games. They really can.
Whatever happened to the Tony Hawk and EA skate rivalry? That sort of fizzled out, didn't it?
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, it fizzled out, and basically Skate got canned. Yeah, Activision
he's up there too. He's not so much the mainstream as much anymore, is he? Like, do people know Tony Hawk nowadays? I don't know. I don't know that my kids would know Tony Hawk. Like,
I think they still do, but I think people now associate him in a negative light as opposed to a positive light. Because, fair play to Tony Hawk. He's come out and said before, especially when one of the Tony Hawk's games came out, and he said the board's great but the game's crap, and I'm really sorry about that. He was really sincere about it. So got to give him respect for that. I just wish Activision would really take that on board, given the fact that he's representing them as the brand, and they've kind of ruined it a bit for him. So
yeah, his name on it.
Yeah. And EA are sort of sat there going, well, if they're not going to release decent Tony Hawk games, we'll put Skate on the back burner because we don't need to compete. So, but I just say bring back those kinds of sports games, and again, this is why I say it's perfect for a PSN pick of the week, because I think more people need to get back to playing stuff like that. It gives you a nice break as well from the old regular first-person shooter games. You just get on a snowboard and you just go grab some powder and some fat air, and have a real good time with it.
Yeah, and boarding's it's a lot of fun. It's pretty easy to get going with it and stuff. Not like skiing.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. For those that have done skiing, you should give boarding a shot. Give it a shot. You'd be surprised. Yeah. It's a lot harder to bang your junk when you're like on rails and stuff.
Oh my God! Is that how you could have thought of that?
Well, there's a saying about like skiing being hard to learn and easy to master, and then boarding being easy to learn and hard to master. And it's pretty much true. You can strap a board on your feet and slide down a hill without too much, So
it's part of the attraction of it. But yeah, PSN pick of this week, SSX, go grab it.
Grab it. Give it a try. So, where are we at? Some general news.
Yeah, we wanted to cover a bit of general news this week, didn't we? So
Nintendo E3.
What is up with that?
I don't know. I gave my opinion. I looked into that. I looked into what they had to say. They had a financial press conference kind of thing where they actually announced it at that.
Yeah,
Nintendo is not having a big press conference like Microsoft and Sony are. They have backed out of that for E3.
And I don't get it, because of all the times to do it.
You don't get it? I get it. It's easy.
Well, no,
it's easy
the Wii U's not selling. You need to put it on a public, you need to put on a big event for it to really grab people's interests again, because obviously it didn't grab people the first time round. And if it's only selling 40,000 units in America in a month, that's obviously extremely bad, because America's a huge market for Nintendo themselves outside of Japan, and it's like even the Japanese are not buying Wii U's. People need to get the buzz back for the Wii U, and doing stupid things like not having a proper E3 presentation. Mind you, having said that, I mean,
Well, they have their channel that they kind of reach all their people. It seems to me their feeling is that it's not worth the money because the people that go to E3 are more for the other consoles, and I don't think that they feel that that's really where their market's at.
but
And
at the same time,
if they feel that, then maybe the money's better spent elsewhere.
yeah, but at the same time, they're doing like mini press events over YouTube, and what they don't seem to realise is that yes, your core fan base will subscribe to those videos and tune in when you do a live stream and stuff, but that's not the problem for Nintendo. The problem is getting people to buy the Wii U that are not their core audience, because the core audience are, still umming and ahhing about whether they buy it or not. And it just seems strange. And even from a press point of view, the fact that you're going to go to E3, you expect to see 3 major press conferences, and instead you're only going to see 2, and one of them
do you though?
you're going to have to go down to the booth.
If their statistics are maybe for like an older crowd, maybe the grandmothers are buying them and the grandkids are playing it, maybe the money is better spent doing advertising after E3, hitting commercials and stuff like that, and
Yeah, but can you really see Nintendo doing that?
I don't know.
I can't. From my perspective, the way I'm looking at it, well, is if it's obviously too costly to put on a proper E3 press conference, then obviously essentially what Nintendo are doing is they're on damage control, trying to limit how much they're spending financially, and by doing ads after E3 to try and attract attention. May end up costing them more money anyway. So I just don't get whether it's supposed to be a cost-cutting exercise or not. Because personally speaking, I just think if it is a cost-cutting exercise, they've done that badly as well. I just think what Nintendo really need is, from an E3 conference, is they need to stop talking about all this crap with technology that's innovative, but they're not actually ever going to release. Do you remember the heartbeat monitor for Wii U?
Yeah.
For the Wii. I mean, that was interesting, but we didn't really see anything. The same with the Wii U, the Wii band stuff. Great concept, but you've got some crazy kooky Japanese dude talking about it and performing on stage, and it's like, well, yes, it looks nice, but you've got to try and relate that to your potential customers, and they haven't done that. What they need is somebody, even just, that can just talk proper. And when I say that, I mean just talk to their customers, and not just talk at them, but to them, to their appeal. Because I find with the previous Nintendo conferences, they've talked at their customers and not to them. And that's the problem. If you look at what Microsoft does and what Sony do, admittedly, again, Microsoft haven't been greatest in terms of E3 press conference years, but they still talk to you. They don't talk at you. And the same with Sony. When Jack Tretton comes on stage every year, and obviously we had the Kevin Butler thing, the whole idea is that they're trying to sell to you as a viewer tuning into that conference. And so they're going to talk directly to you, and they can do that in numerous different ways. And it seems that Nintendo have completely missed the point of that. It's like in the past they've just shown up and gone, yeah, we're doing this, we don't care what you think, we're going to sell it, it will sell. And when we talk about the dark days of the early PS3, Sony in some respects shot themselves in the foot, and one of the things they were accused of was, arrogance. And it seems that while everybody was pointing the finger, at Sony saying, well, you're arrogant, you've made all these mistakes, blah, 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 nobody's been pointing the finger at Nintendo and saying, well, actually, Nintendo are pretty arrogant when it comes down to it. So, I don't know, it's a very strange decision.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to pay off for them.
Yeah, we're going to talk about today's topic, which is accessories and things like that. But do you think is there an issue with some of this, with explaining it to the public when you're dancing around on stage? And because, we've talked about when you go into the store and the selling point of actually having something in your hand, seeing how it works. A lot of these things, like when you see them demonstrated, they, it's not you doing it. They don't translate well. Plus, the other thing that always seems to get me is like, okay, that's great for certain kind of games, and maybe you've made a game or two that relates to it, but then not everything. It's like a Wii remote where it's geared towards motion and movement and everything like that, and then you're sitting there thinking, well, maybe I don't want every game I got to sit. Where's some kind of normal controller operation? Where's some normal,
Maybe that's the problem. I mean, we saw from Sony them demonstrating the PlayStation Move when they first were talking about that, and they really, that was a dedicated PlayStation Move event. But after that, they still, whenever they did a press conference, there maybe have been a little thing in the Move to demonstrate its capabilities, but for the most part, they stuck to, what sells and what attracts their audience, and, the little cool, innovative things were sort of not pushed to the front of the schedule, if that makes sense. They weren't pushed to the front, and so they were able to build people's interest in it slowly, whereas Nintendo come out with something quirky and innovative, and then it's in your face all the time. Do you know what I mean? And as you say, people don't necessarily want that. They just want to be able to sit down and, go, well, how is that, how am I going to play my games normally?
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about, like, innovation's great, but then,
you have to,
there's a point where it's like, well, that only applies in so many areas, and then it becomes... both the moves the same way. Okay, look at Kinect, look at Move. Okay, you're playing a game. It tells where you're at in the room. You can walk forward. Your character walks forward. But then it's like, you're playing an adventure game and you got to cross this vast. What do you step on a treadmill, or keep walking forward into your TV and then go to the back of the room and walk forward into your TV? There's a point where the controls are going to be different than real life and your motions. And it's like, okay, if I make a gun gesture, do I have a gun in my hand on the screen? We talked about this with VR and IR and all these things. Well, where does that, if I don't have something in my hands, how does that translate into the screen? How does it translate to my motions? And then now you're physically doing these things, which can be very tiring. It's not the same as sitting there for a 6-hour gaming, extravaganza where you play your favorite game. You're jumping around, you're all sweaty, you're like, go play a karate game for 6 hours and play it with a move where you got to jump around and kick and all that other stuff. It ain't happening. You're tired.
I was going to say, would you actually survive 6 hours playing a karate game?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, there's all these things that like relate to that, where it's extra cool functionality.
Yeah, and it has a place. Don't get me wrong, it does.
It has a place, but then it's like, when you think about it, it's like, well, that's only certain things.
Yeah, and it should be a smaller percentage, and it makes me laugh as well, when it comes to Sony and stuff, people say the PlayStation Move's not been a success, but I mean, the PlayStation Move's shifted over 15 million units. I don't know what the current figures are, but I'd imagine it's probably around about the 20 million unit marks. They're doing stuff with Wonderbook, and they're still making dedicated games for it. But it's just one thing that Sony have always maintained is an optional thing outside the normal experience. So what Sony kind of go down the road with is, we're going to offer you as many possible ways to get the experiences you want, but at the same time, we know that the core experience in terms of sitting down with a control pad in your hand playing the game is what is our main bread and butter. And in some respects, Microsoft have with the Kinect, they've put Kinect integration in, but they've still kept to their core markets with things like Gears of War and stuff like that, the killer app games that people are going to sit down with a controller in your hand and play for 6 hours. Nintendo have moved away from that completely with the Wii U, and certainly going into the next generation of gaming, it looks like Microsoft may be ignoring that as well, with the fact that you have a Kinect bundle, a Kinect 2.0 or whatever it's going to be called, bundled in with every unit. I really wouldn't want to see Sony go down that route, because and we talked about this when we talked about the PS4 stuff when we first did the show on the press conference. They were talking about the camera and how great it is for 3D depth perception and stuff, but there was still at that point, and still are, maintaining that, it's optional. You don't have to have the camera plugged in. If you want to take advantage of the light bar and the DualShock 4 pads, you can do. Obviously, you need a camera plugged in for that. But if you don't, it's not the end of the world, and you'll still get your core experience.
Yeah. It's like the ultimate realization. It's an accessory. It's like the Move is an accessory. The camera and everything's important for it. That's an accessory. You buy the gun, that's an accessory. It plays certain kinds of games. It's not for everything. I've had people tell me about even playing with that. Their arms get tired from holding the thing up and doing that whole thing. And then you look at it like, if it's integrated into the system, that can be great if it's giving you some extra options and things that are kind of like for free. But then if it's too much dependent on the whole system as a whole, then, if you don't have it, then you know what I'm saying? Then it's like, you don't want to use it.
Do you think it's kind of worrying that Nintendo and Microsoft are kind of making it mandatory? Instead of having accessories as an optional, extra to enhance your experience should you want to. Now you've got this mandatory packing.
I think it's a mistake. If you look at like the Wii, and a Wii controller is all built around motion. And there's not an option to have something normal or whatever. I mean, like, aren't you leaving out more than you're including? Or you're being too specialized that you're limiting a large portion of the gaming community?
Yeah, because, when it comes to things like accessories and control schemes, there's a very fine line, in that you have to tread for them to be available to everybody and appeal to different audiences without, as I say, annoying one set of fans for or against the schemes. But when you start making it mandatory, that for me really is quite worrying.
Well, because it's like, I play on the Wii. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. I play on the Wii, and it's fun to do the putt-putt golf thing with the Wii remote. It's fun to do the tennis, bowling, those kind of things. But then it's like Call of Duty shooter kind of, am I going to play that on there? No way. I'm not doing it. It's like the Move and everything. Having the controller, being able to, move around the room and have the control, it's like a feature that's cool, but it's like, don't force me to buy guns and buy, camera this and camera that. If I don't want that, let me have my core gaming experience free of all that stuff. If you push it and you make it anything but an accessory, because that's what we're talking about here. These things are accessories. Cameras should be accessories. Guns and stuff should. It's like a steering wheel. If they come out with some motion-controlled whatever steering wheel thing, that's all fine and great. It's only going to work for certain games. It's not a large majority of gaming. You shouldn't try to make it work with a large majority of gaming. Your racing wheel now works with Call of Duty,
It raises a lot of issues as well because, I should point out there is actually a PlayStation Move steering wheel that you can get.
Does it work with Call of Duty?
No, it works for Gran Turismo 5 and a couple of other games as well. But I was just going to say, since all the fallout from the... I'm going to, for the sake of this, people know what I'm on about, but I'm going to call it Xbone. With all the fallout from
Xbone.
that, the Kinect should always have been some kind of, optional accessory. And the fact that it's now packed in and you're going to have to make sure that it's plugged into your Xbox your new Xbox to play it and stuff, has raised a lot of issues regarding privacy. Because yes, Microsoft have said, you can change the settings on it so that the camera's not all watching you. But as, somebody pointed out, those things are extremely easy to hack. And, what if the government, I don't want to go too much into the conspiracy theories here, but, what if the government want, surveillance on a particular individual? As it stands at the moment, there's all kinds of, legal proceedings you'd have to go to do that. Now, somebody could just pay a hacker to hack your Xbox One and off you go. It's that simple.
Mm-hmm.
And, that is a scary byproduct of, making something as simple as a camera accessory actually mandatory as opposed to optional.
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'm not going to lie, I like having, you know, accessories, you know, everything, you know, people who know me know that I have a blast on SingStar, you know, I like being able to, you know, plug the camera in and upload a video to the SingStar community website should I want to, but at the same time I can still enjoy the game without the camera plugged in. And I like having that choice, you know, Sony says to me now, you know, you must have X accessory as part of buying your system, let alone whether or not, you know, you've got a specific game that's geared to it. You know, I'm going to start questioning not only the system itself in terms of purchasing it, but also the, you know, whether or not I want to continue down that route, because I find that quite off-putting, really.
Mm-hmm.
I do, you know, and it also raises another question as well, you know, if console manufacturers are going to be the main supplier of accessories because they're mandatory pack-ins, where does that leave companies like Mad Catz and Logitech and stuff? Because, you know, the money they raise through selling, you know, third-party accessories, whether that be extra control pads and stuff, you know, that all contributes to the revenue generated for the games industry. You know, and I think it's ridiculous. I think it's something like it contributes about $3 billion or something to the overall income from the games industry. You know, if manufacturers start chipping away at that, where's it going to leave these companies?
I don't know. Mm-hmm.
Because that, again, that's another interesting side effect that, you know, if you're being forced to mandatory purchase, if you're being forced to have accessories included with your console.
Well, it's going to get harder and harder for them to mock up, you know,
Yeah.
generic accessories, and some of this technology is going to be protected.
And I
you know,
think
how they going to do a PS4, a cheap version, the Logitech PS4 controller with the touchpad and the light and.
And I mean, the thing with it is what people seem to forget as well is that there is a market for these accessories, you know, and again, you know, it's nice to have that as an optional thing to be able to, you know, if you can't afford the price that Sony's asking for an option, you know, an extra controller, you can go to companies like Logitech or, you know, Mad Catz and stuff like that, and you can get a cheaper controller. You know, for less money, and will do the job. And so at least you've got a way to, you know, say purchase an extra controller you want. You know, and if it starts being, if the control of that sort of market starts passing back into console manufacturers' hands, people are not going to have that option. So we're going to be slaves to the pricing of the controllers, for example.
Yeah.
You know, I showed you on Skype the other day, didn't I? I've got a specific controller for my Vita, which is great for certain games. I plug it in, and it turns my PS Vita, it's got big handles on it, and it turns it into like it's a DualShock 3 kind of controller. Now, you know, if companies like Mad Catz and Logitech are being forced out of the industry, I wouldn't be able to purchase that, and that's a shame, because for certain games that really does add to the experience.
Yeah. Huh. Well, I mean, speaking of controllers, is PS4, do we even have a price point on that? Everyone's talking about the console.
Yeah, we had a debate. There's a debate going on in the forum, so if you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. But
yeah,
I don't know. I think
price points.
I've seen some interesting price points, put it that way.
I'm wondering about controllers now, because, you know, controllers are expensive. And
oh, what's a DualShock 3? It's something like 45 quid.
Yeah, it equates
Which
to
is
about $60 here, which is the equivalent of a game. So
and
yeah,
that's
every time
expensive.
you got it is, you know, especially when you got a bunch of kids like me, and y'all want to play a family game or something, you need 4 or 5 controllers. Ouch.
Yeah. Well, in fairness, I will say, you know, Sony have cottoned onto that in the past. You know, when they've done specific coloured PS3s, for example, they always supply 2 controllers in box. With so like when I got my Silver Slim PS3, I actually got 2 silver controllers. You know, which is kind of nice, and it didn't bump up the price of the machine anymore. And I think some of the Super Slim bundles have 2 controllers included at no extra cost. So I think that's definitely a way to go. But you know, when we look at the next generation of PS4, we obviously know one controller is going to come in the box, but as you say, it'd be interesting to see what...
you don't have backwards compatibility with the controller. Your PS3 controller will not work on your PS4 at all.
Well, we know that one's going to come out, but as I say, here's the thing: if the DualShocks don't come, if the DualShock 3s don't come down in price, so they stay at £45, what's the PS4 controller going to be? Because obviously it's new technology.
Yeah.
And in fairness, that's one of the things that Wii U struggled with, because yes, you can use your Wii U controllers with your Wii controllers with the Wii U, but the main selling point of the Wii U is the gamepad.
Yep.
Now, only one of those gamepads connects to the Wii U. You can't have multiple Wii U pads. And more importantly, Nintendo don't actually sell the Wii U pad separately. They will replace and repair broken ones for a fee, but they don't sell them separately, which is kind of disturbing.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was one of the biggest criticisms when they first, announced the Wii U, and they still haven't really solved that problem.
Huh.
And we obviously know with the Xbox One, the controllers are exactly the same, except the triggers now rumble.
Well, no, they put some ergonomical tops on where, you put your thumbs or something along that line, too.
Yeah, but
doesn't it look exactly the same? a little more smoother, but it looks exactly the same.
Yeah, it's not changing the general landscape of control, And this is what I said to people. I've said to people before. If you look at the evolution of Sony pads, for example, there's always been one major change, even though the pad design has stayed fairly similar. When we talk about major changes, there've been some huge ones. With the PS1, obviously DualShock 1, the original DualShock. The original Sony pad didn't actually have rumble in it. Then it did have rumble in it eventually, but they were wired controllers. Then we moved on to PS2 and we had wireless controllers, and that was a huge thing. And again, obviously certain aspects there. And then obviously when PS3 launched, you had 6-axis motion degree and again wireless controllers out the box as opposed to buying adapters and stuff. So I will say this: while Sony has kept the design of the DualShocks pretty much the same all through the thing, there have been significant changes, and we're not just talking about making the triggers rumble or smoothing off the edges. There have been some major changes, and I haven't really seen that from Microsoft over the years. And Nintendo have while they've changed their controllers to some drastic levels. It's taken a while for people to get used to them, and once they do get used to them, they change it again completely, and it doesn't always work, as we've seen from can you remember the N64 pads?
Yeah, they were flat.
Where it had the 3 prongs, and you think to yourself, what the hell? And then you'd finally get used to it, because the stick was in the middle, if you remember.
Okay, I'm trying to...
The middle prong. And you had to hold it weirdly. You could either hold it like you would normally hold a Sony pad, or you put your hand underneath the middle one and use the thumbstick. Not ringing any bells now.
I thought it was until you said that, but maybe I'm thinking...
Yeah. And then obviously the GameCube came out, and the pad changed again drastically.
Yeah. I gotta laugh about the original Xbox controllers when they came out with the ones that were like just huge, and everyone was like, "What the hell are we supposed to do with this thing?"
Yeah, and it can be legally classed as a deadly weapon. You chuck that at somebody's head, and you're likely to knock them out. Give them a concussion or something. But I mean, as I say, in the grand scheme of things, I think a lot of questions need to be answered this generation time around with regards to accessories, because there's too much polarizing views on it. As I say, you've got 2 manufacturers who are making it mandatory to have pack-in optional extras, and then the other one is obviously the other major manufacturer is still going down the route of optional. And I wonder if that will have an impact in terms of sales for the next generation. I mean, we've already, congratulated Sony in terms of saying, well, because I don't know if too many people remember that when we said about this, but every PS4 will contain a pack-in headset.
Mm-hmm.
which is great because not enough people on PSN use headsets. And
Well,
you know, even though,
aren't we talking here that it's no longer an accessory if it's in there?
well,
Or
you can
do you
still,
say, well, when it becomes mandatory?
it's still optional to use the headset. If you
Optional,
get
but no
if
longer an
you
accessory?
yeah, but it's an optional extra you don't have to pay for.
Yeah, yeah,
Do you see what I'm saying?
yeah.
Whereas if you get the say the Xbox One, for example, you know, you have to use the Kinect 2. It's not optional. You
You
can't
know what?
say, oh, it's nice, I've got that. I can use it as and when I want to. No, it's pivotal to using the system, and the same with the Wii U. It's like, yay, I've got a Wii U, I've got a Wii U gamepad, but maybe I don't want to play on the gamepad. Well,
Yeah.
tough. You've got no choice.
You know what I like?
Uh,
Another thing I like about the whole idea of it being just given to everyone is it's kind of along the lines of like it makes it an even playing field across the games.
yeah,
You know, like listening and being able to communicate can be an advantage in a game. And if someone can't afford a mic, or you know, aren't they on a kind of a different level than all the other people that are like, yeah, he's right there behind you, and you know,
yeah.
look over
It does.
here, follow
It,
me. You know, having that
it,
communication.
it does level the playing field, but to be honest with you,
Because
you know,
it's across all
headsets.
gamers. All gamers get it
Yeah.
naturally. So whenever anything like that's built into the game, then it's like,
Yeah. And it is worth pointing out, you know, with the Xbox 360, it was one of the huge selling points from it when it first came out. You know, you would get, even though a majority of people still maintain a headset was a load of crap, you know, the fact that you got a headset in the box ensured that when Xbox Live really started to ramp up its online services, as you say, there was a level playing field. You know, even though the headset was optional to use, you know, people were tempted to use it because it was included for free.
mm-hmm.
I'm just hoping that Sony also include a HDMI lead, and I've learned the lesson from PS3 with regards to that. Because strangely enough, PS3 still don't ship with HDMI leads.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
that's
true.
that's that could be an optional pack-in that needs to be mandatory. I feel.
I
But,
bet everyone's gonna have an HDMI cable already though, from their PS3.
yeah, but then obviously if you're keeping your PS3 and not trading it in towards PS4, for example, then you're obviously going to need another HDMI cable, I think, if they pack that in, they're onto a winner. But you were saying about price, sorry, and we kind of digressed a little bit. But yeah, we've seen some interesting quotes for price. I think even someone said to run somewhere around the region of about $600.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, isn't that the price the PS3 launched at in the US? Something like
Well,
that.
no, if it was 600 pounds, that would actually be 910 US dollars would be the conversion. So, I mean, there's quite a lot of confusion, and it has to do with Amazon's initial price, where, you know, what they're guaranteeing is that it won't go over that. Whatever the difference is, you know, you won't have to pay that.
Yeah.
If you pre-order it for 900 US dollars and it ends up being $500, then you get $400 back.
Well, see, you know, barring Amazon, most of the retailers I've seen in the UK, the pre-order price for a PS4 here is around about £400, which would be around about $600 or maybe $550, something like that. But I don't think it'll be anywhere near that price. You know, it is worth contemplating things like, you know, when the PS3 come out, hard drive memory was still quite fairly expensive. You know, we've seen the prices of hard drives drop dramatically. You
Yeah,
know, and
$50 for a 500 gigabyte for your typical.
exactly, and that's looking from a consumer point of view. If you're going to a computer shop and buying one of them for $50,
Yeah, much less
what you've got to bear in
Yeah.
what you've got to bear in mind is if you're a console manufacturer, you're going to buy them in millions, like in mass bulk. There's no doubt you're going to get a discount on every single unit.
Yeah.
So the price is going to fall down even further in that respect. So. You know, I still stipulate. I think that Sony will ship with two models. You know, they've talked about there will be a big hard drive in it when they reveal it at E3. I think 2 models will be fine. One 500 gig, one 1 terabyte one. I think they need to do 2 models that with those size hard drives because of the background download system and things like that. Obviously, you know, people are going to be doing a lot of video related stuff as well as, you know, downloading their content in the background, because you know that's one of the things that people really have asked for, and you know Sony have delivered with the PS4. So I think, you know, having 500 gig is the absolute minimum, but I think they'll probably do 500 gig and a 1 terabyte one, and I don't think it's going to knock the cost up as much as people think. And I think, you know, if you put in a pack-in headset, for example, you know, a headset, again, you buy them in major bulk, they'll only probably be cheap and nasty ones, wired ones or whatever that you can stick into the new DualShock 4. So, you know, I don't think that's going to affect the cost at all. So I think realistically you're going to be looking at around about £300 for a 500 gig and about $350 for a 1 terabyte one.
Yeah.
Which would be around about the $450 mark for both.
Yeah, I was thinking 450 to 500 would be the lower version's initial price. That was my thought.
Yeah,
I've been calling that for a while.
I think it's safe that you could probably go a little bit lower than that. I think, you know,
well,
I don't think Sony want to make the same mistake as maybe the PS3 with a high price point. And
a lot of people have said really low, but you know, I mean, why would they do it? And then the PS3 hasn't come down. You know, it's like 300.
Yeah. Well, you know, here in the UK, for example, you know, if you're going by recommended retail prices, it's around about £150 for a 12 gig PS3. You know, the ones with the 12 gig solid state drives, and it's around about £200 to £220 for a 500 gig unit. But a lot of retailers sell them for less than £200. So actually, when you then bring out a new unit, say for example you bring out the PS4 with a 500 gig hard drive for £300, you know, the way to sell it to consumers would be, well, look, you can get the brand new PS4 and it's only £100 extra. And I think consumers will really respond to that. I think if they go anywhere above the $349.99 mark, they're already digging themselves a grave, because they've made that mistake with the PS3, and I don't think anybody would be as forgiving this time round if they made the same mistake with the PS4. You know, that was my stance on it. I think some of the figures, as I've seen, are just a bit way too much.
Okay.
Things blowing out proportion. And, you know, as we talk about accessories, I can't remember if, I need to check this out as well, because I can't remember if Sony actually said the camera is packed in or not. And it's bugging me now, because I'm sure they said...
The camera. Yeah, I think it comes
I'm sure they said the camera can be plugged in as optional. It's not mandatory to have.
I think it comes with the camera, but I don't think you have to use the camera for anything. I think that's what.
Yeah, and that might be the one sticking point that might drive the price up slightly more. But again, I still don't think it'll go past the 350 mark.
450.
350 quid. So 450. Yeah, so
500 gigabyte, smallest drive. $450. Camera, one controller. I think it's going to look bitchin'.
So, obviously, the theme of this show really is to sort of look at all aspects of accessories.
Yeah, what other accessories?
I don't want to talk too much more about Nintendo or Wii U, because we've already pointed out the mistakes that are quite obvious that they're making. But, you know, I think when it comes to Sony in terms of respect, some of the accessories they've done have been reasonably good quality. We talked just before we came on air, we were talking about the PlayStation Move and the sharpshooter thing. You're not a fan of that at all, are you?
You know, I tried it. I told you what game I tried it with, and you said it wasn't a really good example of it. You know, I've given different accessories a try, and back in the PC days, you know, it's funny, but I used what looked like a generic PlayStation controller to play computer games. There was a phase I went through there where I bought you know, additional controllers. At one point I had a flight stick for flight sims and things like that.
Did you ever have one of those massive MechWarrior ones?
No, but I played on one of those. Believe it or not, I
my,
did. I played on
my
one of
buddy
those.
had one of those for PC, and it was actually a few years ago. I don't know if you remember. Microsoft actually, I hate having to mention this again, but Microsoft actually did an exclusive version of MechWarrior for the Xbox 360, and it actually brought out a special edition where you could only play it with this massive mech controller. And I thought, bloody hell, as cool as that is, would you really want it? And it's like the size of a huge bloody desk. I think that's taking optional controllers to the extreme, and I'm glad, just listening to you talk about, the flight sticks and stuff. I'm kind of glad that the optional accessories like that have now started to become more user friendly. Have you noticed that? Now
Yeah.
you don't get the big ass controllers anymore, and the big setups and rigs. You kind of get something that does the same job, but just a little smaller and more user friendly. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, like, certain people in the PC gaming world, like, you could count on the accessories. Like, if they were, like, I've seen a flight setup that was just crazy, where it had multiple sticks, where you can control. I don't know if you've ever seen where you can control thrust with
Yeah.
a side handle and everything like that, and
Yeah.
I actually saw a setup one time that was like multi-screen.
Yeah, using the
Those are
three-screen system, yeah.
Yeah, those are crazy. Where you have like your pilot view, and you got like the front out the canopy, and then you got to your sides. You got two other screens, and you're sitting in a comfy chair. It's kind of like a flight chair with a.
But see, for me, even with a comfy chair, I just think something like that is, it's got an appeal somewhere
People
along the
do
line.
it.
But I think
Racing is another one. How many people build racing chairs where they have the the pedals and the steering wheel and all that other stuff? You'd be surprised. A lot of people, if that's a genre that you're just like super into, why not? It's no crazier than having a gun if you're into shooters and buying a sharpshooter.
Yeah, but I don't think it matters what shape the accessory or what type of game it's for, as long as it's accessible, and it's got the right kind of software for it. Because, as you mentioned, that sharpshooter, I actually think the sharpshooter is an extremely quality accessory, and it works really well with the move. It's not rocket science to put together.
Yeah, but like when you're moving forward, though, if you're on the camera and it's tracking it and all that other stuff, but if you're moving your soldier forward and you're pushing essentially a controller button forward, stick.
Well, we should explain what the sharpshooter is for those that haven't seen it. It's
Yeah.
like an assault rifle, but it's got an extended shoulder thing as well.
And you put the move inside of it.
And you put the move inside the top of it, but underneath it, it's got like a grip, and you can put the navigation stick in there. So, like the little controller that comes with the PlayStation Move that has a little stick on it.
So yeah, you use that and you push it forward, and your guy moves forward.
And it actually feels quite comfortable using that stick, the one thumb stick on the underneath of the gun to maneuver your character. You just need to tweak the sensitivity of the stick depending on the game sometimes, because I too, like you, tried it out with SOCOM, and one of the first things I noticed is I had to turn the stick sensitivity down, because I would just flick the stick slightly to the right, and the next thing I know, my my cursor on the screen's doing a full 360. You know what I mean? Just from tweaking the stick. So you do have to customize it a bit with certain games, but I think the sharpshooter works really well. I think the ability to reload the weapon by just tapping the bottom of the bottom handle of the gun is pretty sweet. And I actually look. I think having the physical, like, assault rifle typey weapon in your arms is okay. I think it feels quite comfortable.
Yeah.
It just kind of works, but again, as I say, it really does depend on what title you use it with. I think it certainly works well on Killzone. Definitely works well with that. I don't think it works for SOCOM. And it seems like Sony missed an opportunity with that, because I personally think the sharpshooter would sell more if there were more first-person shooters with PlayStation Move controllers. I could actually imagine playing Call of Duty with that. The problem is, if you look at Sony's back catalogue of first-party first-person shooters, you've got Killzone, and Killzone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And given the relationship that Activision have with Microsoft, I don't think it's just going to be a case of where we see Call of Duty compatible with the PlayStation Move anytime soon. But I would like to see more third parties get on board with that. I think it would do that sharpshooter some justice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Could really benefit with more first-person shooter software, and I think there's a market for it as well. You think how many people play Call of Duty? You could sell them and move in a.
Well, see, I was
shop.
just thinking again about that even playing field. If it's, if it would be an advantage, disadvantage, if it would ruin the game for a lot of people too that are using a controller, because we run into this a lot where you see a person modifying, even just with a mouse pad. Because I can point to you plenty of people. I'll tell you, give me a mouse pad and a keyboard, controls for a shooter, and give you a controller, and I'll tear you up every second of the day. And they're probably right because the mouse has more, direct control of your motions and stuff, so your reactions are faster with getting on a target. But ultimately, when we're going back to that whole accessories and how they fit in with the bigger scheme of gaming. This is not unlike, in my mind, where somebody has a PC game and they get the latest, greatest processor, the latest, greatest video card, all these things. They have all these extras. Maybe they're running programs in the background that help them.
Macros and stuff.
Macros, yes. That's my favorite little push a button and perform 20 different things instantly. Hey, I used to use them, man. They got to where you had to in some PC games to even have a chance.
Yeah.
But there we're getting again into the accessories becoming so predominant in that it takes away from the experience unless you have it. So in other words, then it becomes like, well, shouldn't it be if everyone's playing the shooter and playing the same kind of game that everyone should have to use the Move controller and the sharpshooter?
The funny thing is, Killzone 3 was an interesting experiment with that because when they first sort of announced Killzone 3 and, they said they were going to do the Move controller stuff with it, they actually said, they were going to monitor the statistics of people playing online to see who had a Move controller and who had a DualShock 3 and try and monitor the statistics so they could balance it fairly. In the end, they actually went with a more clever, advanced system where when you fired up the game would automatically be able to tell if you were using the Move controller or not. And as a result, if you were using a Move controller and you went into multiplayer, it automatically only put you in games where other people were using Move controllers. It won't put you in games where people are using DualShock 3. And I actually think that's quite clever and very extremely useful because although it sucks that you kind of segregated because you've invested in the accessory and stuff at the same time, it does address the issues of balancing it out right.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would like to see things like Call of Duty kind of adapt similar systems like that because we know people invest a lot of money in terms of extra gear for Call of Duty. Outside of it, there's a whole pro gaming circuit, and people are going to have, ramped up pads with, rapid fire triggers. I would like something like Call of Duty to be able to distinguish when someone's using a standard control pad or, a different control pad and match people up like that on the matchmaking systems.
Mm-hmm.
Because then I think it'd be a little bit fairer and even a level playing field. Accessories don't necessarily have to, outbalance it in favour of one side or the other.
Yeah, but then you can get into some complicated things where, like, if I want to play with certain friends that aren't using it, and I don't know. It's so hard to look at it, constructively because part of my feelings of why I stepped away from the PC is just because of things like that. That if you start kind of muddying the water, so to speak, on accessories and all this other stuff, and you can get all these extra parts and make your PlayStation better. Like if the PlayStation came out and you could improve your RAM and you could do anything like that, I would be done. I would seriously go back to PC because it'd be like, what's the point?
They have an option where you can pay, an extra $200 and get twice as much RAM, and your system will run faster. Nah. The whole point of a console is that you plug it in, you put a disc in, it works instantly. There's not supposed to be regular uploads and updates and things that you have to have on your operating system and all that.
Yeah.
No fancy install, no somebody's
Yeah,
got a computer that's 3 times faster as yours, and so you're just cannon fodder on the field.
Yeah, but this generation has kind of been about getting people used to being able to have the high definition games that PC's been able to run without having to upgrade. And now we're sort of moving into the next generation. It's kind of like, well, we're still going to do that concept, but what more can we offer that PC doesn't? Control scheme seems to be one of the key points of that. At the moment, these optional control schemes, but also, in terms of other things like software and, the YouTube recording and instant upload while you're playing and stuff like that. So it'd be interesting to see, those that take that stance of, well, I prefer console because I don't have to do any upgrading. Be interesting to see how they feel about, obviously, the next gen coming. But I will say this, in terms of accessories, I think, the accessory market's dwindling a bit. I've always been one to buy Sony accessories because they generally are quite excellent with their, they work really well with each other in terms of Sony devices. But I've always been a sucker for accessories, if I'm honest. I still remember getting, what was the name now? Beatmania on PS1. And it came with a little turntable and a little piano keypad. Love that game. I had an original light gun. I've still even got accessories for my PS3. It's crazy. I've got a DJ Hero turntable.
What?
I've got a Tekken 6 arcade
I think you're the only person that bought one of those.
No, lots of people bought DJ. I actually know someone that's got the platinum for both games, which is bizarre. But no, but I tell you what, there is a lot of fun to be had with accessories. I will say that. DJ Hero wouldn't be kind of the same game if you just did it on a pad. It just wouldn't have the same desired effect, and obviously the whole concept of the game is to be a DJ. And Guitar Hero, even for a while, was fun for a while. But I think looking at something like the PlayStation Move, it's kind of a natural evolution of that a little bit. Because now, even though I've bought accessories for my PS3, it's now, when you look at some of the ways that developers and publishers are utilising the PlayStation Move, I don't need to go buy all those bits of plastics. I can buy a Move controller and it's got the potential to do all those things without the need for me to buy expensive accessories.
Yeah. I don't know. I think the more I think about it, if it becomes too complicated and such an expense, I don't know. I'm afraid of the idea of cameras, and it's like, what's next? Oh my gosh, could be wearing some suit every time you sit in front of your TV, so you can work your TV and your cable and your games and.
Yeah, could you just envision that now?
Put on the gloves, put on the hat, put on the eye thing, put on the glasses. Tracking your eye motion.
Yeah, but think about it, right? That when especially this current gen game, in terms of games development, they've always talked about motion capture and how much the technology's come on, and it's having a direct impact on the film industry with their motion capture techniques and stuff. And I just wonder, would we ever see a motion capture suit for a home console where you put the suit on and it automatically scans and puts you in the game?
Yeah. Your unique
As
walk.
the lead character,
It's got to watch you walk around the room and interact with stuff, so it can put your exact motions into the game. So no longer will Nathan Drake have his own gait. It'll be your gait, how you walk, how you jump. Jump up and grab the curtain rod. Okay. We got it.
You could dive across the room with your fingers shaped as gun and do the whole John Woo slow motion thing across onto your bed or something.
The instructions: slide across the room now. Slide under your kitchen table. Let's see what that looks like.
Do some parkour in your living room.
Well, I was reading a little bit more about the
the Kinect, and apparently there's not as many light restrictions and stuff like that, which is another good thing. And hopefully the Sony's version, the camera with the move and everything like that version will work the same way, hopefully.
Yeah,
Because
but do you not think some of the other things that we've heard about Kinect are a little bit disturbing?
yes,
I mean,
but I was going to focus on like I played with the original. I've actually still got the PSI. That's what I'm using as a mic right now.
Yeah.
But I would use that, and I would play. What's the name of that game? My kids got it where you could control the puppies and cats and all that other stuff.
Oh, iPad.
iPad, yes. So
Yeah.
I was playing the iPad where it had the pad, which
Yeah.
it was a foreign version. It was the first version that was out where you had to have the pad and you would have to interact with that. And especially at first, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. It's like, this is driving me crazy. What is the deal here?
Yeah, you have to get a lamp or something.
Yeah, you got to get a
Shine
lamp. You got to
through
so now I'm turning on all the lights in the room, and I'm like moving it so it's angled more out away from it and making space. And I've got quite a lot of space between my TV couch. I don't have. I've moved the coffee table out completely. No longer have a coffee table in my family room.
Well, where do you put your coffee now?
I don't. I'm a lay on the floor kind of person, man. But I have this huge area. But regardless of that, if I was just your average person, I wouldn't have as much room. And it's like I did all those things to be able to use that, and I'm kind of out in the ordinary with the space I've got.
Yeah.
I'm probably 20 feet from my couch to my TV in my family room.
It's the same. I've had similar problems with the iPad stuff myself, and I've often thought over the 6 or 7 years that we've had this generation, certainly with PS3. The PSI came out about 6 months. No, in fact, it was about 6 months after it launched because there was that card game, Eye of Judgment.
Eye of Judgment. That's right.
They were really selling the camera on that basis, but I'm surprised we've not had an upgraded PS3 iCam at some point, because the normal PS3 iCam isn't HD.
Mm-hmm.
And when Sony are talking up HD graphics, HD this, HD that, and they can't even give us a camera that does HD. Does augmented reality pretty good, just doesn't do HD. So it's kind of strange that Sony haven't done that, but I don't think they'll make that mistake with the new camera. I think I'm kind of looking forward to the new stuff with the camera, and I think the good thing about the key selling point that's going to turn people onto the PS4i is it's not going to have the intrusiveness that the Kinect has, because quite frankly the intrusiveness that the Kinect 2.0 has is scary. I'm not being funny. I like the idea of augmented reality. I like the idea of detecting 3D movement around the room. I like the idea of being, able to use the DualShock 4 to physically reach into the screen without too much fuss. But would I want my camera to be monitoring my heartbeat? No. Do I want the camera to be scanning people in the room?
Well, I think more to the point is the always on, where it's watching for you to make a motion so that you can control the TV or whatnot.
Well, the point I was trying to make is there was this other development which was saying, Microsoft patented the technology and they can really do this. Say your buddy comes round and you've got an Xbox One.
Xbone.
So the Xbox, the Xbone. So the Kinect 2.0 scans your face and knows that you're playing. But the Kinect is also scanning around the room for other faces. It sees a face it doesn't recognise. It can lock you out of playing your content because the other person in the room hasn't paid a license to be able to view or play the content that you've already bought as the main owner of the system. Wow. If they do that, I mean, we are talking about patents here. There's a good chance that's probably not going to be the case, but the fact that they have the capabilities to do that is pretty damn scary, and I think that's where accessories are really going to fall flat on their face, because that's just it's one thing to have it optional, it's another thing to not only have it mandatory, but to be invasive, and to the point of where it's actually not only taking things like biometric information against your will, but also then being able to charge you for specific content, or even in some cases charge you twice because your buddy sat on the couch watching you play a game.
Well, I read a little story, and I don't know if it, I didn't really dig into it to confirm it or anything like that, but supposedly Microsoft had met with NSA.
Yep.
Here in the U.S., which is an intelligence organization, and there was apparently no idea what that discussion was about. I guess that was a few months ago. Kind of odd. But one of the things that you should know, and I'm very well aware of cameras and how cameras work because of my background, was actually...
Don't go into it if you don't want to say it.
Well, I was just going to say, let's just say, in addition to the law enforcement field, I've also been in the security field with cameras and how camera systems work and things like that.
Yeah.
And there's very, very great, just phenomenal technology for facial recognition in the United States. And it stems from casinos. Casinos actually have it where they can identify a person if that person's kind of banned from the casino. Unlike any other place in the world where you say, don't come back here, and they can't really identify you if you did, casinos are different. They can tell right when you step back in the door, a camera picks you up, it runs your face, it tells, oh, this is so-and-so, he's been banned, he's not to be in here, security, throw this guy out. Here's what he looks like. So the facial recognition is, it's used in airports and everything like that. The government's starting to use it, and like I said, it's, come from a private organization and stuff with casinos. But that technology doesn't have to run with the camera system. What I mean by that is you could take a picture of most people, and it can scan that picture and tell every little subtle detail about how far apart your eyes are and all these other things, and actually scan through a database very quickly and identify you. So potentially what you have there, if you had a high-quality camera, which this, the one for the next Xbox appears to be just a superb quality camera, technically they could actually put your picture through that process and actually identify you, what you look like, where you're at, and all these other things that sound a little far-fetched and scientific, but would actually be very, very easy. So I laugh, but imagine if you were a wanted criminal and you step in front of you turn on your Xbox, it's like, oh, there he is.
Yeah. Do you know what made me laugh just thinking about that, listening to what you were saying? I was going to say Microsoft actually would have the computing power to run the images through there because of the extra 300,000 servers they've been talking about, you know what I'm saying? Even if they're not all real, but that's going to grant them extra computing power on the cloud. Do you know what I mean?
Xbox gaming, Xbox TV. Xbox, did you just turn me in?
Xbox arrest.
Yeah.
Oh dear. We probably just started off 1,000 conspiracies, which is weird. Starting off conspiracies about Xbox One on a PlayStation orientated podcast.
Well, where the other thing that's striking about this is where does is a console, as they're growing and they're going forward, and we talked before about the future 2020, is a console able to continue to grow? And
so.
If you just keep doubling the RAM, you double the graphics, there's a point where it's it's starting to look phenomenal now. We're not talking about little digital dots that are,
Yeah, but
palm.
I don't know.
We're getting to the point where it looks fantastic. You're going to get to a point where it's if you doubled the RAM and you do all this, where does it end? Doesn't a console have to take on and grab a hold of accessories at some point too, and those be very unique?
Well, they are going to be important coming down the road. I think we're still very much in a
Yeah, cut out. Can't hear you.
line. Sorry. Can you still hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. So we're getting to that stage where games are still trying to push visual boundaries, and until they reach that peak of where the image is so great, that your eye's not going to be able to distinguish whether it's 60 frames per second or 30 frames per second or 120 frames per second.
Yeah, not like it
and
can
look
now.
terrible. Well, you know, it's getting there, but what I'm saying to you is where every game will look visually amazing regardless of the technology powering it. Once we get to that visual peak, then you'll see real revolution in terms of the way that we interact with it. And this is why I said, you know, when we talked last week about, you know, possible control schemes for 2020, because that's where it's going to change. Once they hit that visual peak, it's then going to become, right, we've got it to this point now, where do we go from here? We need to start looking at the overall and revolutionizing the interaction with the game. Can we put you in those images? Can we immerse you in them? How would you integrate with them? How would you react with them? How is it going to interact with your day-to-day life when you're doing your normal standard gaming sessions and stuff like that? And that's where you're really going to see the revolution come from. I think accessories is important to part of that. I mean, we've kind of got it good a little bit.
But I mean, we're also talking like
optional, but
it's dependent on so many other things, because you think about it, it's like if you project something into the room and do like I mean, that's a TV, right? That's the TV's job. It's not part of the actual console. Or you do, you know, I mean, you look back at like television itself, where it went from black and white to color to, you know, now we've got where 3D and everything. They're attempting to do that kind of stuff. But then they also had like smell-o-vision that they tried in theaters. Where do you get to the point where it's like the console is no longer relevant to that whole process? Like it's more an accessory from a TV that's projecting something into the room, or it's the accessory that feels like a gun in your hand and has nothing to do really with the console. It's not console innovation. It's not, you know, I guess that's where I'm saying, like, there's a point where they're so limited because that's all they are. It's a console.
Yeah, but essentially, you know, until this sort of internet connected world, you know, becomes a level playing field in terms of the speeds and stuff like that, I still think, you know, we're going to have to rely on hardware. Yes, we've seen a lot of developments push with things like the cloud, and, you know, that's supposedly Microsoft's trump card, which is all great. We haven't got much power in the Xbone 1, but we can source that power from the cloud. And it's like, yeah, that's great, but the latency, especially if you've got a slow internet connection, is not going to do you any favours. You know, I can see the cloud being a predominant thing, but, you know, again, you're still going to have, I'd imagine you'd have to have some kind of console thing, even if the console itself turns into an accessory where it's just an adapter you plug in your TV, and then your console-based games are, you know, streamed to that through that adapter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's assuming that we still have a TV in 10 years, because, as you know, from what my vision of the ideal of the future would be in 7 or 8 years was completely something different altogether. But do you see what I'm saying, though?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, but I still think that we need to hit visual peaks first, and I think that's what, you know, the console manufacturers are really going for to some extent with these new iterations of hardware before they say, right, now we need to look at the bigger picture.
Yeah, well, I
See what I mean?
said that before too. Even the visual reaching too high of a peak, you know, blood and gore, and I don't know.
Yeah, because there's still a lot of issues regarding all those kinds of things that, you know, console or no console still need to be resolved. You know, we talked about this when we did the show about taboos, if you remember. You know, what would be a taboo in games, and there's still a lot of taboos and boundaries where, you know, the issue hasn't even come up for debate. So if you can imagine the graphical capabilities of consoles getting better with each new life cycle, and then, you know, those issues still not being resolved is also tugging us back a little, is keeping us back a little bit, because then it doesn't push the innovation in games design, it doesn't push the visual peak of the consoles, regardless of what the game's topic is, and as a result we can't get to that visual peak of where we say, right, we've got the most perfect possible images that we can and a system of delivery. Now, how do we revolutionise games going from here? Because, as I say, I really do think, you know, there's a lot of boundaries and walls that need to be smashed in between, you know, going from the console to the visual peak before revolutionising.
What other accessories do you feel are important? And like, I mean, what do you want to see innovation in? Like, do you think the camera is the big one right now, and that, you know, the graphic ability and stuff like that?
I don't know. In
Do you
terms
think
of
there needs
things
to be more gun type controllers, like something
God,
better like that, or?
God, no. Last thing the world needs is more guns, especially when you go on the internet and download a 3D one.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just, you know, when it comes to accessories, I'm just not sure what I'd want. If anything, you know, what I would like to see, and you know, again, as come back to what we talked about with regards to you know, the whole glasses system. I would like some kind of accessory that's able to, you know, you're playing the game, but you're able to put useful information into, say, the lens of a glasses, so that while you're playing, so for example, but it's done in a non-intrusive way. So for example, if say I'm playing, I don't know, say Watch Dogs, for example, the new Watch Dogs game, and I'm stuck at a certain point, I could then say out loud to myself, oh, I wish I knew how to do this. The smart glasses would then bring up some kind of trophy guide, or Google search results for a trophy guide. I could then go on there, stream the video from YouTube into my glasses lens, and understand how to do it. And I would kind of like to see accessories that do things like that.
I think glasses, as far as accessories, should become something that would allow you to essentially see a big screen TV wherever you're. You know, something like that would make, if you could get to the point where you had a portable HD TV that was in front of you by putting on glasses, right, that'd be very powerful. And
I think there's some interesting dynamics of that as well, because again, I come back to this whole Watch Dogs thing. But say for example, you're playing the Watch Dogs game. There's QR codes in there, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Say for example, you've got the glasses on, you look at the QR code within the environment, the glasses scans the QR code itself and then brings up, I don't know, a code for extra content. You know, that is just perfect. I would love something like that. And I think, you know, even if that accessory was like 150 quid, 200 quid to buy, you know, it's an optional accessory. I think I would really enhance.
So that would only be visible to you if you had the glasses. So we're talking about a alternate reality world inside of your video game.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. I just, you know, I'm just trying to think of accessories that I'd want to see without, you know, before the revolution comes overall, if that makes sense, because we know that's going to come eventually, the revolution of how we interact and all that. But what accessories would I want to see in the meantime? The glasses one is certainly one of them.
Well, it has to be something that's aimed towards the general public, because like accessories where you're buying a turntable or you're buying a drum set.
Do you know what I'd like to? Another accessory that I'd really like to see, and this goes back to my days of playing PS1 games and stuff. I'd like to see some kind of infrared beaming accessory. You know how like you can get these little devices you plug into USB port and it beams an infrared keyboard onto any surface.
Yeah.
And you can use it. Kind of like that. I would like to see somebody do something like that for console, but then just not just the console keyboards, for example. I would like to see them take it a little bit further. So, for example, say that you buy the latest Dance Dance Revolution game. You could then plug in one of those accessories, and rather than get one of these massive third-party accessory dance mats, it would beam a dance mat onto the floor for you. Do you not think that would be cool?
Oh, the keyboard would be.
From a little accessory
keyboard would be handy. Imagine if it worked with the camera to, you know, you could project it anywhere on your carpet, on your top of a table or something, and then just wherever your fingers go, you could type in, and so instead of using like your controller to go between letters to send a PSN message, you just be like, you know, pull up a keyboard and just type it real quick.
And not have to, you know, actually have a physical keyboard. But you know, and coming back to this Dance Dance Revolution thing, it's important though. You know, in terms of the accessories you can get for it, you can get like a dance mat. There's plasticky, lays on your floor. It's pretty cheap and nasty, and it costs you about 50 quid. If you really want the proper full Dance Dance Revolution experience, you can get like a metal board that you lay down, and it's like 500 quid. It's custom made with all the buttons, and it's like having the arcade cabinet at home. Yeah. But you wouldn't need to go even that expensive if you had something infrared that was able to substitute for it. And the same could be said for things like DJ Hero, for example. You know, what if you had an infrared device that beamed a DJ turntable on there and reacted in real time when you used it? You know, that again, one example, or a Tony Hawk's game where you beam a virtual skateboard down. You know.
Yeah, but where do you get to the point where it's not anything tangible that you can hold in your hands where it affects your gameplay? And
yeah, but what I'm saying is those accessories that are potentially doable now. You see what I mean? God knows where they're going to go with it in 10 years' time in terms of overall accessories. But I'm just thinking about accessories we'd like to see now, and I think, you know, the infrared stuff could be a pretty cool thing to do now. Because we know the tablets integration and stuff like Smart Glass and Sony apps and stuff are all coming anyway.
Yeah,
so
see, that seems so, I don't know. I don't know about that as an accessory because it's really, you know.
Well, it turns your normal devices into an accessories.
Well, is Smart Glass, is that anything on the Xbox? Or is it something on another device? It's Smart Glass is for tablets and stuff. It's the same as, you know, I don't know. In my mind, it doesn't seem like a console accessory.
It turns things that aren't accessories into accessories. You know, and I'm not sure why you'd want some of them. You know, do you really want to be looking at your tablet for your Halo stats while you're on pause in a Halo menu, and you can just bring up I don't know. I don't really get that myself, but I'm sure somebody will come up with some really cool way to deal with that.
Yeah, it's like having the two screens on some systems and everything. It doesn't. There's a point where it doesn't really make sense because you can't really use both. You know, I've seen a lot of the stuff with television now where you can get extra stats and stuff like that about a show, and you can sync it so that you're getting extra content, but it's kind of like, why wasn't they just why wouldn't they just show that content during the show? It's like, you know, okay, because it's always going to be extras. It's always going to be nothing that's paramount to it.
Or press the red button after the show.
You're sitting there and you're watching, you know, you're playing that and you're getting extra stuff on your tablet, and it's distracting you from the you're missing out the main part of it anyway.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'd be interested to see how successful that implementation is. Really, I can't envisage it really at the moment because through fault of my own, like here in the UK, we've been having a lot of what they call interactive TV ads, where you can do certain things on your mobile phone via numerous apps, and it'll do all kinds. Like the last England football match, there was an advert for a Jaguar car. And if you use an app called Shazam, which tracks music and scans the internet while listening to music, and then tells you the name and the artist of the track, well, with this interactive advert, if you use Shazam during the advert, what it actually did was it took a picture of you and put you in the car that was driving during the 2-minute video. And so it then puts you in the advert as an interactive advert, and you know, Ubisoft are doing some interactive stuff with regards to, you know, Watch Dogs and creating your own unique character to put yourself in the Watch Dogs game as well via their Facebook app and things. So I don't know. I think the jury's still out on that. I think we need to see more of it before it's fair to make a judgment as to whether or not it's useful, because we're sort of looking at it from the standpoint of, well, if it's distracting you away from the experience, you know, is it going to be any good? And I guess it depends on how distracting it is and what the distraction is itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And if there's anything I know about technology, it's anything that's driven by, like, advertising and marketing and media, those things will be developed first.
I mean,
they really will.
concept,
Your game will detect what things you buy and stuff and put ads in there before you
but,
get a.
but like with the Jaguar advert, is I have no interest in adverts, right? When I'm watching the telly. But the thing is, so if my phone's distracting me from the telly, which it would be doing anyway because I have no interest in ads, that's fine. But it's actually quite clever on their part in terms of, well, the distraction would actually be me driving a Jaguar, which in which case I'd be okay with that. I think that would be a welcome
to you
distraction.
directly, yeah.
Exactly. So it doesn't mean I'm going to run out and buy a Jaguar at 130 grand or whatever, but at the same time, I'd welcome that as a welcome distraction. As opposed to me just going, right, I'm going to go make a cup of coffee because the adverts are on or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Look at my phone and stuff. So, as I say, the jury's still out on that, I think it's fair to say. It'd be interesting to see how they integrate that, and I'm certainly keen to hear more about the PlayStation apps. Certainly in the run-up to E3, because we're only, about 8 days away from Sony's press conference?
Yep, 8 days.
So we'll get to see and hear more from that. So, and I'm no doubt Microsoft will tell us all about how smart glass is going to work properly, because they announced that last year and they still haven't really explained that. So it'll be interesting to see.
Indeed.
So what do we reckon? Do you think accessories are going to really push things forward?
I don't know. I mean, I think we need some big innovation that benefits gamers, and I'd like to see something else come out, because it seems like we're talking about the same things we were talking about 20 years ago in terms of technology that we want, but at the same time, it's like I said, it's outside the console market, so there's not anyone. Someone needs to come along and have a reason to invent those glasses, like a TV manufacturer. I don't think that's Microsoft that's into software. I don't know that it's Sony's with their console, like PlayStation having developed that.
I was going to say, you do realise that Sony already have a pair of glasses.
Well, yeah, but it's not Sony. The people that make PlayStation are not. They shouldn't be working on that, because it's got so many other uses and it's got so many other technologies in it.
Yeah. But I guess the point I was trying to get, sort of the question I was asking you, but you kind of sort of answered it really, is, so are we happy with things with accessories and the way they are at the moment in terms of they're optional, but really what we actually want to see is we're okay with the optional extras, but what we actually really want to see is something revolutionary and innovative? Would that be a fair way to call it?
Let me just back up and say that, from my standpoint, I would like to see something. I talked about this before. I think would be a very good idea. One of the things that I look at is other technologies, and I compare it, and that gives me a basis for like how I believe things will go. And I look at television. I know that's kind of but I look at television. I look at where television has come and how it developed into kind of like having movies where you went and you're paying at a theater, and how it went from that into the home and went from black and white to color, and it advances. And then you got cable now, where you used to have, television over the airwaves, and you've got cable. And
now you've got a games console that is a cable box.
Games console is a cable. But I think more to the point is like the things that it has done for and to the consumer. And I look at games, and one of the things about technology and things like that is new things can be very expensive. And one of the things about television, like it used to be free over the airwaves. You bought a television, you could turn it on, and you would pick up television stations over the airwaves. And it was, paid for by advertising.
Yeah.
Why has no one thought to do the same kind of things with a gaming environment? Why is it moving away from that, where it's going back to paying for cable and things like that turned me off?
and it's losing them customers, and it's moving to being free on the internet, free content on the internet. And it's like
Right.
it's killing television through cable, and it's
Do you know what
improving it over the internet. And they still got the ads, and I guess I'm looking at it from the standpoint of like, you can't do something similar to make games free or much lower costs. You can't let those advertisers that are advertising to us anyway kind of help pay for those kind of things. You can't make innovation that I watch on my DVR, watch a show somewhere, and I can't fast forward through it. It won't let me because it wants me to watch the commercials. Or there's no skip feature. Where's the point where I can buy a DVR and I can just skip through the commercials and go right back to the movie? I mean, I don't see where it's being applied as best it could for the consumer in mind to either make the content free or make it less hassle-free, make it make sense, make it work with other devices,
And it needs to be smart as well, because one of the services we have over here that you guys don't have is called VidZone on the PlayStation 3, and it's basically like a music video channel kind of app where you can watch music videos for free, and it's powered by apps. What you often see sometimes, it's powered by ads that cut in every third or fourth video. Now what you often see on there sometimes is like advertisements for the PlayStation console, which isn't very smart because you're obviously watching it on a PlayStation console. So why don't they realise that you're watching it on a PlayStation console and then link it into things? So if the PlayStation Store's running a bargain for a sale, for example, why not have an advertisement that includes a bit of a trailer of a game that's on sale in the store followed by the price of it? That to me is smarter than advertising the console itself when you're watching it on the console.
Yeah.
So they do need to get smart with that.
Well, that's what I mean. And you got people like watching TV now on laptops, or they're watching it on their handheld, or they're watching it on their phone, and like all these things, like there's apps for it, and they're different, and like the applications are different, and like the content you're getting is different, or it's paid for with, like Netflix doesn't have. We all know it doesn't have some of the latest stuff, to hit the video market. They've got some blockades going there where these movie publishers and stuff won't release the content right away. You can't watch the recent season that just ended. You got to wait until it's like 2 years old, and then it shows up on Netflix. And you got, internet streaming things where you can pay for the movie now and stream it. And then you've got other illegal places that people download stuff. And you got it seems to me like it's so jumbled, and it's making technology. It's making technology dumber by having too many different applications, versions, separations with the customer. Somebody needs some innovation.
Nothing's a bigger turn off than watching the TV, the adverts come on, and you get an advert for buying a brand new TV on your TV. So why can't you advertise me something that may complement my TV?
And that'll probably come with, I think, with internet television. That's another thing that you'll see a little that can be a lot better than the airwave cable version of television. Is there's no feedback like there is when you're using Google. And I don't know if you've searched something in Google and then you go to your mail account and all the ads are related to something. You just searched plumbing fixtures. And then all the ads are plumbing fixtures because Google's learning about you, and they're using it to target to you. And those kind of advertisements they're more acceptable, aren't they? I mean, if you were playing a game and you were just like the Jaguar, you're not going to buy a Jaguar, but let's say you're playing Grid 2 and you've been looking for to buy a new Toyota. And you're playing Grid 2, and it's like, hey, you want to see what the new Toyota looks like inside, and it gives you a car scan, and
some sort of interactive video.
You're driving down the road, and then there's an advertisement for your local Toyota car dealer that you pass on the side of the road.
And then that helps pay, they're paying advertising,
Yeah.
helps pay for your game, and instead of costing you 50 quid, it costs you 25 quid.
Yeah.
You're like, I could go for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, because I still think there's this because of the way things are at the moment. There's this mindset that people don't want that, and actually, I think if it was forced upon us but done in the right way, like you say, if you're playing Grid 2 and it comes up with an advertisement for your local Toyota dealer or whatever, I think people would be okay with that once they get used to it. But it boils down to this risk reward system. Which is, are advertisers and developers going to take the risk to do things like that, and get the potential rewards? And I think, as you say, if it drives down the cost of an actual game itself, I think it would catch on a lot quicker as well.
Mhm.
So, it's certainly thing. But I was just going to say, I don't want to go on too much about that because it just had occurred to me, and I'm going to let listeners in on a little secret. The last couple of weeks we've been really struggling to find some topics to go on with, and talking about accessories is great, and we've had fun doing that, but we've sort of diversed into advertising. It just kick-started my memory that we actually are going to have to do a show on the advertising side of things, because I still think there's a lot of things that we need to cover with regards to that. So do watch out for that in the next couple of weeks. We will get a show done on advertising, because we did promise we would come back to that when we had a bit of a go at Sony for it. So, and I'm kind of intrigued to do something like that after E3, because I think that's definitely going to be definitely going to raise some interesting points when it comes to advertising.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see before and after, and I don't know. Lots to think about. I'm looking forward to E3. Count on us doing at least a show about the Sony press conference.
Yeah.
If not a dual one.
Yeah,
I know you got to be thinking like Xbox. We're PlayStation geared, but you know what? It's relevant. It's very relevant. It's a competitor, and the two of them are going to play off of each other. It's going to be relevant to new customers coming to the PlayStation, and it's nice to compare and contrast, because what are you going to compare? It's like advertising. Sony's advertising. What are you going to compare it to if you're not going to compare it to Microsoft's advertising?
And we are kind of hoping that it isn't going to be another PR disaster from Microsoft, because we really do want people to concentrate on the important things, which is obviously the competition, as you say, because then that, in some respects drives forward innovation. So
yeah,
and we need that. And if they have another PR disaster, because we were laughing about this during the week. I should probably tell people this. We were laughing at this during the week because what was it? Microsoft is still continuing to dig themselves like rather large holes at the moment, and it's ridiculous. And one of the things, and we should round this up as well from your Trophy Lounge. You were the guest on the Trophy Lounge this week, weren't you? And you guys were talking about DRM and stuff. Yep. And then obviously since then we've had like the president of Sony come out, and Sony Worldwide Studios come out and said that it's not mandatory on the PlayStation 4 for developers to have or include, DRM measures. It's going to be up to the developers and publishers themselves as to whether they do that. But Sony's not forcing that on anybody, which kind of clears up the second-hand game side of things with Sony's PlayStation 4 as well. So we were kind of laughing about this because we were saying, well, really, all Sony need to do is turn up at E3 and show off games, really, and the PlayStation 4, and
Sony shows up for the win.
Yeah, but joking aside, as I say, it's going to be an important.
They've got a lot in there. They've got a lot. I don't care what anyone says. You can debate this till you're blue in the face with me. Microsoft is putting themselves in a bad position, and Sony is just sitting pretty right now. I mean, here we are. We've been talking about accessories. We haven't even talked about the Vita.
Yeah.
The Vita is... How big of an accessory is that for the PS4?
And that's going to become extremely relevant, next week in terms of, the other sort of news that came out from Sony this week, which is obviously it's going to become mandatory for developers to make it so that every PS4 game streams to the Vita unless they're using the new PSI camera. So, which is great if you like your multi-platform games, because as we all know, multi-platform games don't always necessarily take advantage of the manufacturer's accessories.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to see a lot of things like Need for Speed, FIFA, all those kinds of things streamed to PS Vita. And I tell you what, that's going to drive up the audience and sales from Vita extremely higher than they are now, I think.
So the recommendation, sell Microsoft stock, buy Sony stock. Get in quick.
I was going to say Microsoft stock's going a bit cheap at the moment, isn't it? mind you, in the grand scheme of things, if you think about it, if it was like $20, if it was like $20 a share and it's now $19 a share, yes, it's cheaper, but it's still pretty expensive. So I don't know.
Short.
Yeah. But yes, so I think it's definitely safe to say that next week we will probably do a pre-E3 show on the Sunday, and then we'll probably have a couple of shows during the week, depending on, stuff. But obviously we'll let you know more about that when we plan it out this week. So we shall be the first to let you know.
I'd like to hear, do you think... like the reactions, has it been fanboy driven, do you think? I notice a lot of people just completely ignore the facts. Really, it seems like that's a general theme.
I don't think it's necessarily... I think fanboyism is playing a part in terms of the way that it's driving negativity, but I think... I don't necessarily... I wouldn't want to put it all down to fanboyism. I think part of the problem is the confusion.
Just people just don't know. You got a lot of people think... let's wait and see.
The fanboyism is kind of born out of the confusion as a result of it. There's still a lot of unanswered questions, both serious and non-serious, certainly from Microsoft's point of view. But the thing with it, it just seems that, if we went back in time 6 years, we saw the PS3 getting a hell of a lot of negative press. And I think a lot of press outlets now would say that, at the time that was unfair, to do that to Sony. But the press aren't on board. A lot of the press aren't on board with this Microsoft system. And, can we say that the negativity that Microsoft have gained as a result of it is unfair? Well, actually, no, it's not. This isn't like it was 6 years ago where it really was unfair. In terms of the negative press that Sony were getting. This is actually, legitimate, fair complaints that's driving the negativity forward. Mix that in with the confusion and fanboyism, and as I say, it's no wonder it seems that every other day Microsoft are digging themselves a hole. I don't think there's only one particular thing to blame, unless you sort of want to point the finger at Microsoft themselves.
Yeah.
I remember reading about 6 months ago that there was this rumour doing the rounds at the time, that Microsoft were very heavily behind in terms of, the new systems. And I'm wondering if that now turned out to be true. Which is why you get all the confusion, because they've thought, crap, Sony are going to have their thing in February. And we've only got a couple of months to clobber something together and really finish this off, even if we don't know all the details, and rush it out the door. And I just wonder if that's been the case.
Don't know. I think we're going to find out either a lot in 8 days, and people are going to get all their questions answered, and we're going to truly see what people really think, or we're going to get a lot more questions, and people are going to be even more confused, and that's going to drive people to go, oh, look how great the PlayStation 4 information is. Guess we'll see.
We should sum up this week, which is we don't think accessories are all that bad, as long as they're not mandatory or too invasive. I think accessories as they are now are okay, but we want to see a lot more.
I want to see something new. I want to see new.
Yeah, we want to see something either be extremely evolutionary or revolutionary. And I think, it's not that we don't like accessories now. We just don't like the direction that certain accessories are taking. When really, instead of taking that direction, they could, be doing something better. I think it's probably fair to say that. But before we go off this week's show, there was one bit of news we did want to sort of, we were going to say it at the beginning, but when we were talking a little bit of news, but we sort of kind of naturally segued into this week's topic. So, interesting stuff from Killzone developers, Guerrilla Games. If you purchase the digital version of Shadowfall, the new Killzone game, you will only have to download the main menu and the first level, and then you can play the game. The rest of the game will download in the background.
And this is like a test of that system, correct?
Yeah, well, essentially, yeah, it will be. Depending if Killzone Shadowfall is a launch title, we still don't have a release date for that or the PS4. But what's interesting is it kind of... Guerrilla have been talking a lot about Killzone Shadowfall, and that one of the, this is quite intriguing that they're going to be the first sort of real people to talk about this feature and, the extra chip that allows for the background downloads.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I bring up why it's kind of exciting is because with Killzone Shadowfall, it's going to be the first test on PS4 to really see how that works. And, this idea of having a dedicated chip to do all that stuff, as opposed to Microsoft's solution, which is have a dedicated operating system to do all that stuff. It'll be interesting to see in 2 weeks' time the real test, which is obviously going to be with The Last of Us, because as you know, with The Last of Us, you'll only have to download about half the game, and then you'll be able to play it. And it could have implications for both systems, really.
I don't know. I was going to go break into the Naughty Dog and stuff tonight and actually steal a disc and bring it home and put it in. And
well, see, this is why we need to start bringing money into the site, because a lot of people have got their press copies already, and I think the review press embargo goes up on Wednesday, I think. So the first review should start coming out next week for it, which is a damn shame, because if we had our contacts, man, we could have nailed a press release copy and have a review for that already. But don't worry, we're working on it.
we'll get there.
But yeah, I just thought I'd share that with everybody, and I think, I'm actually going to put that video up on the front page of Guerrilla Games talking about it and stuff. I think people should certainly check that out, because they have an interesting insight to the technology, and the fact that they've said it's so easy to do. It's something that gamers should get excited about, because if something's easy, that's great, but imagine what it's going to be like if it's difficult. Imagine the quality we're going to get when someone like Naughty Dog really pushes the system and challenges itself to make the most difficult possible game ever. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
If they can produce Shadowfall, looking great as it is and fantastic game with dead ease, imagine what they can do when they try and really make it difficult for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's going to be cool.
I don't know. I'm going to head out the door and go get my advanced copy. The Last of Us. I am.
Yeah, I know. You're telling me.
We're gonna hang up here. I'm gonna get my shoes and my keys, and I'm going. That's my plan for today. Got to do it.
Okay. Well, we should probably wrap it up.
There's
then.
a special that's ends today. I gotta go take advantage of.
Yeah, definitely. So, is there anything else you wanted to cover?
No, sir. Look forward to we will doing special press conference probably the 10th, the night of the 10th. I think it's about 5 o'clock my time. I think 5 o'clock.
2 a.m. Yeah.
That's when the press conference starts, I believe, for Sony is about 5 o'clock my time. So
it's 2 a.m. my time, and I've got the exam first thing in the morning.
Oh, okay. Well,
so we'll work something out.
Fill in something.
Yeah. Well, I think we should end the show on a very important thing for all our listeners, especially those in the UK. I'm going to have to do this 3 different ways because of continuity, which is congratulations, England, on beating Brazil. Well done, you thoroughly deserved the win. We should also say congratulations, Brazil. England were poor, well done, you beat us. And if it's a draw, it was a really good game of football. Everybody enjoyed it. Fantastic. What a great thing to do. I think that covers all 3 outcomes.
Okay.
We'll see in about an hour. So.
Alrighty. All right. Thank you for joining us in this edition of the PodStation, and we will see you next Sunday. Thank you.
Till then.